And so since October 2022, we've offset the equivalent of 124,000 tons of CO2 for a year, which is small in the grand scheme of things. But if you compare us to other types of climate interventions, we're literally number one. We're just two guys, and we've caused more cooling in the world than any other current climate intervention that currently exists in the world. And some of these climate interventions have raised, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. We've only raised less than $2. There was this volcanic eruption in 1991, also, and in 2022, that literally affected global temperatures. Just one shot did this. And once people learn about that, then they'll start to realize, wait, you don't have to stop eating meat. I don't have to I don't have to switch to an EV. I don't have to believe in these things that people have told me and guilted me into thinking that this is a bad thing. Wait a minute, this gives us more time to actually then develop really cool technologies that can replace the heavy carbon emitting types of byproducts that happen from enjoying our lives, right?
Andrew, it's great to have you on. Andrew is a good friend of mine who I met back in the day at Y Combinator's Camp Reboot, and he's got a unique and possibly dangerous just get shit done approach. And he's done selling SaaS and has decided to try and save the world by shooting sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, copying what Mother Nature has done for an eternity with volcanoes to lower Earth's temperature with an SO2 blanket to reflect sunlight, creating a sunscreen-like effect. Andrew, you told Time Magazine in an interview that it's the nerds versus the jocks, and that you're the jock. What did you mean? Was it because Mexico banned you from doing this in their country, or because the FBI is watching you?
Yeah, FBI is probably actually listening to this conversation right now. And so when I meant by the nerds and the jocks, I personally consider myself a nerd as well. But in terms of how stratospheric aerosol injection has been rolling out into the world, is somewhat similar to how AI has been as well. AI back in before ChatGPT came out. It was a very academic endeavor. You had a bunch of grad students labeling data and essentially had shit data in and shit data out. And but since ChatGPT came online in 2022, people have now realized the power of AI because it's now hit the consumer level. And so, I consider ChatGPT kind of like the jocks, where the nerds were kind of just fiddling around with models, fine tuning their models, trying to make it perfect. And then, probably there's no commercial interest to release it because that's what academics do. They just want to keep fine tuning the models.
Yeah.
But once you get the jocks involved, they want to try to start making some money here. And that's what ChatGPT did and kind of started this gold rush in AI. And before that, in academia, AI had been very well. I mean, since Alan Turing, right? That's the first, he's the godfather of AI, right? With the Turing test. And so it's been around for a very long time, the concept of it itself, but there was no real commercial applications for it. And so in my sense, it's the same with SAI, where it's been very well studied since the 1980s. There's been over 2,000 academic papers written about this. Scientists have gone through every single scenario of what could go bad. And now, we've realized, hey, there's this moment in time in our history where global temperatures have been increasing and they haven't been slowing down. And so this is a solution where we can actually slow down global temperatures from rising until we can start removing the CO2, the excess CO2 that we put up into the atmosphere since the 1850s, as well as have a steady transition to more renewable energies. So that's a very long-winded answer of saying that, this is something that was just mostly sci-fi and academia, but now we're trying to pull it out into the mainstream.
So you're saying the jocks are the founders, the people that get shit done, not the ones shoving nerds into lockers, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Did you do your fair share of shoving nerds or into lockers, or were you the nerd getting shoved?
I was the nerd usually getting shoved into the lockers, actually. But I would stand up for myself. So I think that was the big difference. Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to save the world? Do you have a god complex, a savior complex?
I don't think so. The reason why we're doing this is because, as I said before, global temperatures are increasing. We're at this level of global temperatures called 1.5 C, so 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is the amount of warming that has happened since the Industrial Revolution, which was in the 1850s. And so this was all caused by, if you believe in the science, this is all caused by man-made emissions of CO2. And scientists have said, hey, if we continue to go down this path, there was this Paris Agreement saying that a bunch of countries got together saying, hey, we're not going to pass this level of 1.5 C. And we did. We've been doing it for about a year now. We've been sustaining this temperature for over a year. And we've been breaking heat records and all this stuff. And so if we continue to go down this route, we're going to get more catastrophic climate events that include floods, fires, hurricanes, just more bad things that are going to happen. Because as you increase the energy in our world, aka the sun, you get more and more catastrophic, more climate change, right? Both on the positive in terms of it gets hotter as well, it does get colder. So you get a higher variance. So the reason why we think that, why I'm doing this is because, hey, there's a possibility we can actually control this variance. We've seen it, as you had mentioned in the intro, Mother Nature has been doing this for millions of years via volcanoes. Back in 1991, there was this volcanic eruption called Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines that injected roughly 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, and it cooled the planet by 0.5 degrees Celsius. Wow. So 0.5 degrees Celsius is pretty massive because, again, since the 1850s, we've increased global temperatures by 1.5 C. Literally, this one volcanic eruption reversed global warming by, say, 20 years, because right now the rate of warming for what scientists have said in terms of for every decade, the world warms up by 0.25 degrees Celsius. That's the current rate of warming that's been happening. And so this one volcanic eruption reversed global warming by 2 decades. There's also a more recent volcanic eruption that happened in 2022 of January. So there's this volcanic eruption called Hunga Tunga in the Pacific. And it sounds like a ridiculous name. Like, look it up, please, guys. Like, look it up. I'm not just making up these things. But there was this volcanic eruption in January 2022, right after the pandemic, that injected roughly around 400,000 to 700,000 tons of SO2 in the southern hemisphere, and it cooled the planet by 0.1 degrees Celsius. And so, again, this massive volcanic, or it wasn't massive, it was actually a small amount compared relatively to the amount of SO2 that we currently emit in the troposphere. But it was a relatively small amount of SO2 that influenced a huge shift in global temperatures.
So make sunsets. How much have you guys changed the global temperature?
So that's the $1 billion question. The current amount of the way that we currently measure our success is by the number of grams of SO2 that we've put into the stratosphere. And this is all based off academic research and modeling and what we observed in nature. Is that for every gram of sulfur dioxide you put into the stratosphere, it offsets the warming effect of 1 ton of CO2 for a year. And so since October 2022, we've offset the equivalent of 124,000 tons of CO2 for a year, which is small in the grand scheme of things. But if you compare us to other types of climate interventions, we're literally number one. We're just two guys. And we've caused more cooling in the world than any other current climate intervention that currently exists in the world. And some of these climate interventions have raised, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. We've only raised less than 2. To put it in another perspective, because no one knows what a metric ton is. You can't visualize that. Just 2 guys with a bunch of balloons have planted the equivalent of 6 million trees that last for a year. We're just 2 guys. This is why it's so scalable. Again, I said 1 gram of SO2 offsets the warming effect of 1 ton of CO2 for a year. So that's a 1 to million leverage.
What about how long CO2 sticks around? I think it's something like 1,000 times longer than SO2, or 100 times. What was the multiplier?
Yeah. It's around 100 to 1,000 years. It depends on the type of, it depends on the CO2 and the age. So that's the tricky part of this entire thing. To be clear, we do not remove any CO2 from the atmosphere. You could do it by planting trees. There's other companies that are using vacuum cleaners, like really big vacuum cleaners that suck air. I mean, it's called direct air capture, but it's essentially just big vacuum cleaners with filters that filter out the CO2. To be clear, we do not remove any CO2. What we do is we prevent some of the sunlight from hitting that greenhouse gas layer, because that's where it traps the heat. So the greenhouse gas layer is mostly made out of CO2 and methane. And so that's the issue, is that we've put up all the CO2 since the 1850s. It's stayed up there for that long. Some of that CO2 that we've emitted back in the 1850s is still like circulating around in our atmosphere. And so we essentially have a waste problem here. To be fair, we've used the energy sources that we need to make ourselves into superpowers and lift the entire globe out of poverty, because we have cheap access to petrochemicals. But we haven't been very responsible about what we do with that byproduct, which is the CO2, when we spend that energy. And so those debts are coming to fruition now, coming to maturity, and we got to do something about it. And so this is essentially giving you a little debt extension. It's because it doesn't remove the debt, right? We're not paying down the debt here by removing that CO2. All we're doing is saying, hey, let's just kind of extend this credit line a little bit, so we can figure out how to repackage this debt in a better way. But we haven't figured that out yet. The largest direct air capture facility right now in the world removes about 4,000 tons of CO2 per year. That's nothing. Just last year, I think the world emitted around 37 billion to 40 billion tons of CO2. And so when you say 4,000, and this is there's only one or two of these currently in existence. And so 4,000 a year is literally not even a drop in the bucket. But it's very promising. Microsoft is funding some of the funding it via some carbon credits and stuff like that. But it's just too expensive right now, and so it just needs time to scale up. Plus, we got to plant more trees and all that stuff. But that just is not happening fast enough.
How much time are we getting from Make Sunsets as a stopgap solution?
I mean, it really depends on how much SO2 you want to put up, and so this is all based off market demand. This is why we're a private entity, and we're a commercial application instead of some kind of nonprofit. People are voting with their dollars, giving us money to deploy SO2 on their behalf. And so we have customers that are parents, scientists, PhDs in physics and stuff like that. But we also have a couple billionaires as well who are paying us to offset some of their carbon footprint. And so as more people learn about this as a novel solution to give us more time to decarbonize our entire global economy, essentially there'll just be kind of just like supply and demand curves here, where the more you pay us, the more we'll cool the planet. But there will be a ceiling to this, right?
Right.
No one wants an ice age, including myself. That's one of the memes that always comes out. It's have you guys heard of Snowpiercer? In the YouTube comments, you'll see have you guys heard of Snowpiercer? Or, oh, this is how the Matrix started. And so clearly I don't want that to happen. No money in the world would convince me to start an ice age for the entire planet, because you would know who it is. It's literally us, because we're the only ones doing it. And so, there will only be so many people who will be willing to pay this. And eventually, we'll ratchet up the price, in order to, figure out where that sweet spot is in terms of global temperatures.
So I think you mentioned before that in something like $20 to $40 million range per year, you guys would be able to completely pause the visible effects of CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
Can that work forever? Or is there or does it just buy us 50, 100, X amount of years for us to figure out what to do about CO2 removal?
Yeah. So the price is still, to give you the unit of economics is how cheap this is. It currently costs us $1. We charge $1 to offset a ton of CO2 for a year. But we can probably drop that down, that gram deployed into the stratosphere, down to 1 cent. Mm-hmm. And so whatever 37 billion times 1 cent is, I believe it's 370,000 or 370 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds like a big number, but the LA fires this past in January just, did about roughly like $150 billion in property damage.
Wow.
Like, there's clear ROI here. It's less than
Sure.
$1 billion to pause warming for a year. And so can we do this forever? I don't know. This is the exciting part of this entire endeavor is that yes, Mother Nature has done it periodically, like year after year, at various random times, right? But we've never sustained hey, we're going to keep it down. We have some evidence of this. Like to be fair, what I'm specifically talking about is the stratosphere of cooling. We've actually done troposphere cooling. So what I mean by that, there's different parts of the atmosphere. There's the troposphere, there's the stratosphere, and the next level is the mesosphere. What we care about is the troposphere and the stratosphere. And so the troposphere is where all living species live, right? Your plants and animals. That's everything that exists on this world. That's also where a lot of the weather activity happens as well. 99% of all weather activity happens in the troposphere. And so during the Industrial Revolution and ramping up to that, we've emitted at peak SO2 emissions, we emitted roughly around, I think it was 130 million tons of sulfur dioxide in 1979. That was peak SO2 emissions. We've now ramped that down to roughly around, I believe it's around 70 million tons of SO2 back in 2022. We don't know what the latest numbers are because I don't know where that data is, but the latest number is in 2022, we've emitted roughly around 70 million tons of SO2. So we've sustained, and to be clear, SO2 anywhere in the atmosphere cools the planet. But if you do it in the troposphere, you get the side effects of acid rain. You get respiratory illnesses. You get all these negative side effects of putting SO2 in the air that you breathe. And so, luckily, in 1979, the EPA clamped down on that, called the Clean Air Act. And so we started to put scrubbers on coal power plants. We started to clean up our fuel, and we drastically reduced the amount of SO2 that we emit from industrial practices, from cars, from ships, from all that kind of stuff, down to roughly 40%. And so when we did that, we also saw a ramp up of warming. So it's been over 40 years of us starting this geoengineering type of experiment and then ramping it down. And then we see the inverse where less SO2 in our troposphere increases global temperatures like that. And so we have an idea of what will happen if we sustain this over, say, 30 years. But we're saying, hey, we can avoid geoengineering the planet badly by just putting it higher up, because in the stratosphere, it lasts for 1 to 3 years, versus in the troposphere, it only lasts for about 10 days because there's weather activity. So it rains out from clouds and all that kind of stuff. But when you're in the stratosphere, winds go about very, very fast, like about 120 kilometers per hour. For the Americans, it's about 60 miles per hour or so. And so it mixes very well up there. And there's this thing called the Brewer-Dobson circulation. So that's how stratospheric winds actually circulate and diffuse this entire thing. And so you kind of said it yourself, like it's an SO2 blanket, I think. That's essentially what's happening when you emit it up there. Because as soon as you put it up, because for example, Pinatubo, that's in the Philippines, that's just one single injection site, but it covered the entire world. Scientists saw global temperatures drop around the world by 0.5 degrees Celsius. So that's why it's interesting to put it up there versus in the troposphere, where then you'll also look in the comments on Twitter. You'll see you're going to cause acid rain if you put it in any amount of SO2, and it's you're correct if you put it in the troposphere, but if you put it in the stratosphere, it acts very differently.
Is there a red line that you wouldn't cross if suddenly some kind of new science revealed that your work might be causing more net harm?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll shut this company down immediately. And the great thing about this technology and this type of intervention as well is, again, it only lasts for a year. That's how we've observed it in Mother Nature, right? Pinatubo, hopefully maybe you can show a graph where essentially you saw global temperatures before 1991 start going up. And then all of a sudden the Pinatubo eruption happened. So it downshifted by 0.5 degrees Celsius. And then after a year, that aerosol dissipates down into the poles. So then you saw those global temperatures spike up again. And it was because the SO2 was no longer working, essentially. And so we know. Oh yeah, there you go. So there, yeah. So there you go. So, perfect. You had it handy. So exactly. So you saw this spike that happened, and then now you see after 1992, it start to go up, and that's exactly what happened. So it's a temporary solution. What we're saying is we got to sustain this until we have better technology that can remove the CO2.
Gotcha. Okay. You've got quite a few critics out there. A lot of folks are worried about like the perhaps unknown consequences for what you're working on. What is the threshold, the burden of proof, the threshold of evidence required for you to realize this may not be the best net good for our species? Like what is, how do you determine what that is?
I mean, I think it's literally our company just shutting down. Like people will stop paying us to do this. And so it's really a lot of just vibes. Like in my opinion, like it's the easiest way to put it. Like, cause the vibes aren't currently there. Like we have roughly 870 customers now. Like that's nothing. To be fair, this is a novel technology that has never been like deployed before. We're the first to try and even commercialize this, but like clearly this is not a $1 billion company. And so, you're currently witnessing the beginning stages of the first stratospheric aerosol injection company in the world. And maybe we'll ramp up, maybe we won't, but like the way that essentially how we'll die as a company is if people don't want to pay for this. So, and honestly, like that's like, we will always present the latest scientific information. Also, we're just extremely transparent too. Like if you look on our blog right now, you'll see how much money we have in the bank, what our revenue was for that month, how much we spent, and what our runway is, how much we succeeded and failed at in our attempts for that month, and what we're working on next month. And so, if you see our runway starting to shrink down to say like 2 months, don't give us any more money. That means we're on our death throes. Like you clearly should not be supporting a failing company that is trying to do this. But hey, we've got roughly now about like 2 years of runway still. We've been very conservative with our cash, but we've been obviously making a lot of traction and getting a lot of critiques. But at the same time, too, it's really important that you understand that hey, like this is all based off of demand. This is not based off of us saying that we're just going to deploy whatever. People have to pay for this. Otherwise, like in my opinion, like no one, it's not like this will never get this consensus that we need. That's the only signal I have found that works. You know, people can vote, force their governments to do this. People can, try and force corporations to do this. But for governments to even get on board with this, the people have to vote for it, right? And generally to show that, there has to be some evidence from a dollar standpoint, in my opinion, to actually do this.
I know you have a pretty extensive background in go-to-market. How has it been doing go-to-market with something like this? It's so different from selling SaaS.
Yeah. Just to give you some background, like I've been in startups I started back in 2010. I was like the first business hire over at HackerRank. And the go-to-market strategy there is very different from trying to sell sulfate aerosols as a service. And but I think during my experience, I just learned all the different types of go-to-market strategies, and essentially I've kind of just Frankenstein this type. What it really taught me was to be flexible, to continue iterate, just like in code. You got to keep iterating. Like the way that you succeed in an engineering culture is you need slower cycle times, or faster cycle times, as well as that's basically speed, and then also quality. Those are the two, but speed is more important than anything else in terms of increasing your ability to reach product market fit. Same thing with sales. Like the first 2 months of this company, I first thought that our ideal customer profile was a bunch of corporations that were specifically sustainability teams that were trying to help their public companies reach like net zero. And so I went to like a sustainability conference where Fortune 500 companies showed up, and I started pitching them, and they all just thought I was crazy. And I was wearing a suit, I was trying to look professional, but still the message just wasn't coming across because it was such a novel idea. And so
why not? Why didn't they get it?
Because it's new, because, we're the first company in the world to try and do it. And I think, in terms of how sustainability teams adopt a new solution is that they have a huge amount of reputation to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And so they never want to be the first to actually try and do this. Or it highly depends on the company, but for most like established companies, reputation is a huge thing. And we can get into the history of like carbon offsets and sustainability, but like quite frankly, it's not a great history where there's been a lot of scams. There's been a lot of accusations of greenwashing.
Yeah.
And so for them, for a new technology to come out and to then say, hey, we're gonna support this, is a huge jump. Specifically because these sustainability teams don't have a lot of power. They're at the mercy. It's a cost center. It's rarely a thing that causes them to increase sales. Or they used to think that it was there. So because a lot of sustainability teams, like they used to be ex-marketing people and PR people,
right?
and so the corporations all think, hey, like it was always a tactic where, hey, if we can like conceive ourselves to be more green, maybe we can sell more shit to our customers. And so like that's always been the MO. Like, and clearly like politics have changed recently where some of the largest corporations now are all pulling back on their ESG goals because no one cares anymore. The government doesn't really force you to do this. There's not a lot of support in the arena for that kind of stuff. And so again, it's pretty much based off of vibes. But the interesting part was that, while I was toiling away in trying to get B2B, interactions going, I have also a background in consumer go to market. And so we just launched a simple Shopify site on our website. And, luckily we started getting press, it was actually literally 69 days after we incorporated the company. We got our first press hit from mainstream media. And it was a hit piece. You guys can look it up, the MIT Tech Review one. But the interesting part was that since we had a Shopify site up and we had like our intentions and our FAQs, it was very academic. The people who read that, I mean, you just think of the typical MIT Tech Review reader. Like it was very scathing, but at the same time too, there was a lot of like interesting pieces to it as well. There was a small percent of people that read that and then bought cooling credits from us. So that's the product that we sell. And some of those people are extremely influential people in the Twitterverse. And so that kind of just started us on this like on ramp to go consumer route, because that was the signal that we saw. We saw zero signal from these corporations because honestly, they're more worried about their reputation than actually taking action on the climate. Like, this is why paper straws exist. It's not because like they want to save their environment. They just want to think that they are and show to the consumer that this is a thing that they can do, that either way, it won't harm it or make any kind of impact. But, these consumers, they were physicists from Caltech, from MIT. We even got a couple like billionaires on board. It was just something where we saw this signal. It's like, we got to invest in this more. And when you're starting out trying to find your initial customers, like you can't go broad, right? Like that's the fatal thing that you could do. You would die by 1,000 cuts if you try and reach as many people as possible to then have this message that is not focused at all, right? Then you're not pleasing anybody. Like you gotta first start and find that's very, very small piece of the pie, and then expand that pie with people who care about what you're doing. So, like we found that our customers were the nerds. Like, these were people that were people who studied this in college, in grad school. They read about it in a science fiction book because we were actually inspired by Neil Stephenson by this book called Termination Shock. You had mentioned like, hey, you sound like a typical go-to-market guy, and you're right. Like I can talk to a rock if I need to. I've been talking a lot right now. I'm sure if there's some kind of analytics, you'll see like right now, like I'm probably not like 90% of the conversation, but like a story I can give of me, my tenacity is probably the best way to put it. Is that we just did a balloon launch and we were waiting for it to land, so we were grabbing some lunch. We're just this random diner in Tracy, California, which is like kind of like farm country. And this very nice waitress like was taking our order, and we definitely didn't look like we belonged there. She was just asking like, "Hey, why are you guys in town for?" And so I just started pitching Make Sunsets, and then she just started nodding her head, going like this, like yeah, interesting, huh? Like, and my founder was going, Andrew, not now. Like, this is not like, she doesn't care. She just want to take our order. It's like, hey, I don't know. Like, this is going to affect everybody. So we should tell people what we're doing. So that's the story.
Well, that's the evangelist kind of spirit you need as a founder. Like when you are the one that's creating all of the momentum, it's just you and your co-founder and maybe a small team, and like all of the in business inertia comes from your personal effort, right? So you have to have that mode, I think, default enabled. So I think that's a superpower of yours.
Thank you.
What is stopping Make Sunsets from being like a tremendous success right now? Is it just money?
It's not so much money. Like it's more of, because like we could, like I'm confident like we could get $20 million if we needed to and just deploy this. However, then we wouldn't have the buy-in from the world. And so it's a lot of education around this. Like this is an extremely niche thing that no one has heard about. Like when I tell people stratospheric aerosol injection, like they'll just think, what did you just say? They don't even know that this volcanic, or like everyone knows what climate change is. Like people, there's even a religion around it. Like some people believe it, some people don't believe it's real, but they don't know that there was this volcanic eruption in 1991, also, and in 2022 that literally affected global temperatures. Just one shot did this. And once people learn about that, then they'll start to realize, wait, you don't have to like stop eating meat. I don't have to switch to an EV. Like, I don't have to believe in these things that people have told me and guilted me into thinking that this is a bad thing. Like, wait a minute, this gives us more time to actually then develop really cool technologies that can replace the heavy carbon emitting types of byproducts that happen from enjoying our lives, right? Like, if we were doing it right, if we had the builder mentality, if we had that ability to accelerate our technology, it's resource constrained right now, right? We lack the actual raw energy to produce more cool shit. like if we had unlimited energy, right, through say solar, through nuclear, through fusion, we could develop products faster. We could replace meat with say synthetic meat that doesn't cause as much CO2. We could have nuclear powered cars that are super safe, that never has to burn any energy ever, or burn fossil fuels ever again. I don't know. These things could happen, but we lack those resources right now because there's a small group of people who think we need to degrow. We need to have less kids. We need to stop burning fossil fuels because it's bad. No, I mean, fossil fuels is an incredible technology that has lifted billions of people out of poverty. The US and the EU have decoupled CO2 emissions from their GDP, but the developing world hasn't. And to tell the developing world that you cannot use the same power playbook to lift yourselves out of poverty is hypocritical, in my opinion. It's telling them to go die, essentially, instead of trying to flourish. Eventually, technology will replace these fossil fuels, but we're not there yet. And in the meantime, we cannot tell a group of people who are trying to make their lives better using the technology and the energy stack that they have access to not grow.
If SAI today, for some reason, became infeasible from a technical limitation or from a new scientific discovery of some kind, how would you go about trying to create the global impact through some other kind of technology? Or would you start another company, or would you switch fields entirely? Like, what would you do if it suddenly became unviable for whatever reason today?
I would probably switch to solar sails. So that's the holy grail. That's the interesting thing too, is like the way that I consider stratospheric aerosol injection. It's a stepping stone to full the ability to control the climate. And so 20 years from now, Papa Elon will reduce the launch cost of getting stuff into space, or there'll be other technologies that can get into space super super cheap. Um, and so, what then in that point, I think that technology curve will kind of, like the ideal cost is about $10 per kilo to get anything into space. I think that's like the holy grail. If that ever happens, then we would then start sending solar cells into space that essentially can turn on and off the sun as needed. And so that's the safe way to go about it. Like, you shouldn't be putting aerosols into the stratosphere, but it's a natural process that already exists. And so this is just like, again, like stepping stone. A better way to put this too is like, this is Ozempic for climate change, right? Ozempic is a great drug, right? It makes you lose weight. It even increases fertility, I believe, as well, both for males and females. I recently read that. But as soon as you stop, like, you'll get fat again if you don't change your lifestyle. And so that's like it's a stopgap. And so that could be the thing, right? Like, right now, everyone's using Ozempic. Like, people have been trying to shut it down as this thing that is like, terrible for you.
Mhm.
But usually those critics are people who think that you need to suffer in order to lose weight. You need to put in the work. Like, you need to put in the sweat. Like, otherwise you're just cheating, right? Which is fair. Like, maybe people need to suffer in order to lose weight. But we've got this miracle drug that can do this. And in my opinion, has helped the globe because it has reduced other side effects of having weight gain.
Just like Ozempic, perhaps like SAI could have unintended consequences and misinformation. How do you juggle the planetary level impacts? Like, you are changing temperature fundamentally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could impact monsoon season or hurricanes here or there,
Mm-hmm.
tornadoes all of a sudden, right? Like, you are creating global impact. How do you juggle that moral, ethical balancing act?
And so this is all based off the academic papers, and where we get this confidence from is that if it's the conversation has now shifted, not from if we should be doing SAI or not be doing SAI. It's do we want to live?
Is it how much now?
Is it how much? Right. It's because we've already been doing it. Right. We've been doing it badly through the stratosphere. We've been like accidentally cooling. Well, not accidentally. We've been unpurposely cooling the planet already. Like, for example, if we stop all SO2 emissions that are currently emitted from coal power, diesel ships, from industrial processes, we would live in a 1.9 C world currently right now. In terms of calculating these risks and like weighing the benefit and the risk analysis, is that now we live in a world where if we don't do this, the world will continue to heat up, full stop. Like, we don't have the technology to slow this global temperatures down. And so do we want to live in a, say, 3C world or a 4C world without any intervention, which in my opinion would be catastrophic. And if you can ask any scientist, it's a pretty bad world to live in. Like, scientists have said there's no longer a Manhattan if you live in a 4C world. And so, there's no San Francisco. There's no coastal cities anymore if you live in a 4C world. Or do you want to live in a 4C world reduced by do you want to live in a 4C world that's reduced by SAI? And so it's a risk versus risk now of doing this versus not doing this. Instead of how much versus, now it's a how much question in my opinion. But that being said, that was kind of, does that make sense?
It does make sense. Do you have scientists in your corner that are helping you guys make sure you're on the right track? I know you and your co-founder didn't exactly come from this field. So right. How are you making sure you're staying on track with like the latest research outcomes?
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about academia is that they regularly publish papers. Since the 1980s, I read probably at least 2 or 3 research papers every single week on this topic itself. And so it's always like, this works. It's just how well does it work? If we tweak this model here, we put this variable here, like what will it do to the atmosphere? How it will change global temperatures? How it will, like, change the chemistry of our atmosphere? But directionally, like there's no question that this actually cools the planet. And so that's the stumbling block, and the frustration that we get from the scientific community is that they're basing all this off of modeling. We need to now start to get some in situ data, like actual field deployments, to like actually put in a variable. Again, this is a small variable, small amount of SO2, right? Not a Pinatubo amount, maybe a Hunga Tunga amount, right? 400,000 tons. Maybe that's enough. Who knows? Let's just keep increasing the injections and slowly ramp up, because we know that it'll fall out in about a year. And so we can keep increasing these deployments more and more, and then see what happens. And since we know what that upper limit is, which is 20 million tons, because past that we don't know. That's the point of no, like
unknown.
Like that's unknown, right? But based off the modeling, because based off the academic research, 20 million is too much. Like we would never try and deploy that much ever, because based off of IPCC modeling. For every trillion tons of CO2 you put into the atmosphere, it warms the planet by 0.45 degrees Celsius. And so this is just straight CO2. There's some error bars here, obviously, confidence intervals. But in order to reverse that trillion tons of CO2, you only need 1 million tons of SO2 in the stratosphere. So again, 1 million is like probably the upper limit that we really need. Because again, when these volcanic eruptions happen, you also had lava, soot, CO2, all this other stuff. We only want to focus on the cooling part of that volcanic eruption, which is the sulfur dioxide.
No lava.
None
of that.
Yeah. Too James Bond. Too like we are controversial, but not that controversial.
What's it been like doing this as a single dad with kids? I know that your kids are your world, but how has it been?
Lately, I've been able to get out more. Like for example, like before, it was just me. My schedule is fairly set. Like wake up at 7:30, get the kids dressed, feed them, get them out the door by get them to school by 8:30, and then I have till 5:30 to work. Then I'll pick them up, feed them, bathe them, put them to bed by 8 o'clock, and then rinse and repeat. So I've been doing that for about 2 years now. Because that's how long the company's existed. But then it's kind of caused a little bit of what is the word I'm trying to say? It caused me I feel like I'm stuck in a cage a little bit. So people started, my founder started to realize, hey Andrew, you probably should take a break here. like get your parents or somebody to come maybe once a week and just take the kids off of you, and so you can enjoy yourself. So these past 2 weeks, I've been able to socialize with other people.
That's great.
And no, other than my co-founder and my kids, But when you're a mission-driven founder and you have the confidence and the drive to know that you're doing something important, that keeps you going. But obviously, like any high-performing athlete or CEO or anything, you need to take breaks, right? You need your body to recover, both physically and mentally. And so I wasn't doing that. And I think my co-founder was noticing that. And so luckily, we keep an eye on each other as we're working on something very difficult and very controversial. And, we hear it left and right from, both left and left and the right. And so I'm not some invincible dude. I have feelings too. And so words hurt sometimes. I've developed a thick skin, but for the most part, I'm not invincible to the critique. But touching the grass, as Twitter likes to say, is super important. And having that balance is good. And it's helped me actually become a better founder and also a better father as well, just to kind of take that break.
How do you recharge?
Really, it's actually talking to other founders like yourself, because they understand what we're doing. Like Camp YC or Camp Reboot, that's one of the highlights of my year.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And because they understand what's going on. They're working on something that is novel or has never been done before or hasn't been proven out, and it's hard. It's hard to will something into existence. And so they have some understanding of what's going on. So that helps. Also, I've been playing a little bit of poker, like low stakes kind of stuff, nothing crazy. But like that's also helps, like just kind of make your mind think in a different way. That's like those are the two things that I've been doing. But I need to also get some exercise into the routine as well.
Didn't have enough risk taking at work. You're like
low stakes. It's like a 1-2 limit, so nothing crazy. I'm not doing 5-10 or anything like that.
How do you keep yourself motivated, like day after day, like with so much, like your skin's only so tough? Taking breaks is important, but like when you're in the grind, like you're in the trenches, how do you keep going?
Talking to customers, because they're our biggest cheerleaders. Without them, this company would not exist. And it's like one thing, this is a hack for you founders out there. Find out who these people are. Like if you're like, you have less than 100 customers, like really find out who they are. Like try to talk to one every single day. And so like one thing I did, an easy way to do this by default is that, and you're a customer, Daniel, is that when you buy a cooling credit on our website, you'll get a confirmation email saying, thank you so much for buying a cooling credit and helping us cool the planet. And then there's a link where it says, hey, you can chat with Andrew Song for 15 minutes and talk about why you did this. Because I want to know who you are. Like, this is not a normal thing that people buy. This is not buying an iPhone. This is not, trying to buy a piece of software. This is you guys giving me money to send sulfur dioxide via balloon into the stratosphere to cool the planet, to copy a volcano. And so it's a very unique set of people. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely motivating to talk to these types of people because, for some reason or another, they decided to put some faith in what we're doing. So there's a huge amount of trust built. And it's a selfish move, but it's one motivating because generally they're very supportive of what we're doing. But then at the same time, too, it's important for you as a founder to understand who these cheerleaders are, so you can find more of them, so you can shout into the mic louder and louder with this crowd.
Have you found someone who's donated for a very nutty reason?
Like for political reasons, like one customer who's a little bit more conservative has said this is to own the libs, and so. To own the liberals, to own the libs.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so, it's interesting because, the background around that is that, like, clearly we've known about climate change since 1985. This is when Carl Sagan, testified in front of Congress saying, hey, this climate change thing is real. We should take a look into this. And since then, most of climate change types of interventions has been coming from the liberal side of our government. And quite frankly, they haven't been like succeeding. Like we are, unfortunately, they have very good intentions, but along the way, a lot of well-intentioned liberals have said we shouldn't be using nuclear. Like that was a big stumbling block in my opinion. Also, we've been doing things that might feel good, but really have zero impact on global temperatures. Because again, the scoreboard is currently 1.5 C, right? We knew about this for a very long time, yet we haven't been able to influence global temperatures in any meaningful way from like the interventions that we've enacted so far. And so this one customer who's more conservative, they see this as a solution where we can just own the libs. Like you guys are clearly worried about global temperatures. I'm just going to give you $1 billion. We're going to try to figure out how to raise $1 billion. And we're going to solve global warming for everybody. And we're going to take this away from out of pure, what's the word I'm looking for? Pure spite. Like, like we're just going to solve climate change for everybody and take this away from the liberals.
Regardless the motivation, the fuel, as long as we all get to solve the problem and create like a prosperous future for our species. Does it really matter? I guess not.
It doesn't. Like, I don't consider this a left or a right issue. I consider this a human issue, and so I don't care how it gets solved, as long as it is done correctly and safely.
Earlier, you had mentioned Papa Elon and his satellite constellation. What do you take? What's your take on his overall like space exploration mission? I
think it gives other founders and other people some type of like hope and inspiration. That's how I see it. You know, obviously there's a different side to him as well, but in terms of the technical prowess and the ability to ship and stretch the imaginations of people, like I think he's been doing an excellent job there. And so as you know, he's just as a founder, he's an inspiration to me that way. And kind of that same mentality of like get shit done. Like rocketry in itself was just an extremely capital intensive process, but he figured out a way to, you know, reduce all these costs to make it more repeatable, which is a huge unlock for humanity.
He likes to state his life mission as making us multiplanetary. What would you say your life mission and purpose is?
To build a better future for my children. And that's because, as you said, I'm a single father. I have full legal and sole custody of my kids. And so there's just no one else for, you know, and so I want to set them up for success. You know, I think it's important that we think about future generations and how we leave our planet to them. And I think this will buy us more time for the people like the Elons of the world, the people who are trying to help us transition away from fossil fuels, give them more time.
I don't have kids yet, but I've asked a lot of people I respect, admire, smart people, founders, all kinds of different folks about what it's like having kids and about how that changes their life purpose. And I won't say 100% of the time, but almost always the answer I hear is when you have kids, it doesn't matter how deeply invested you were in anything else that you had going on in your life, your kids suddenly become your overriding number one purpose in life, and everything else falls secondary. And somehow they become more efficient with, you know, working on their startup or any other life's work they have, but the kids have a dedicated portion of their life energy and time. How has it been like for you? Did your kids make you less ambitious, more ambitious? Did they, the time they take, like somehow, you know, make you more effective as a founder? How has that been for you?
I mean, I agree with everything you just said. To put it quite more literally, like now you're responsible for two little humans. And so if you mess up, the government's going to come after you.
Sure.
Just put it more like black and white. You know?
Look, Andrew, you don't need the government threatening you to be a great dad, right?
Sure. But like that's just the easier way to put it. Like
sure.
once you bring something into the world, like you're responsible for it. Like, you know, in many ways, not only being good citizens of the world, but also making sure that, you know, they're not causing trouble, or maybe they are causing good trouble, but they're not being a net negative in the world, because that's something you're a part, you help make. And, you know, just like a founder, right? Like I think that's everyone's dream. I don't think there's any founder thinking, I want to make a negative impact in the world. Sure. At least the intention is, right? And so, like, and a lot of founders have said, like, you know, their startups are their babies, which is a very, you know, good correlation to this. And just like any startup, first you got to be able to teach your baby to crawl and give them the tools and the nutrition and the attention to first make them crawl so they can walk, so they can run, so they can become, you know, a productive society of productive member of society. And I think that's what drives me. Because when you look at your kids in the eyes, you look at yourself, it's a mirror. And if you don't take care of your kids, like, I think you're not taking care of yourself. You're not, and so it seems almost egotistical in a sense, I guess you could say, like and when you make these kids, like you have to, like, this is a reflection of your character too. Like there's no other like inputs going into these kids right now. It's just me and then the teachers. And so like if my kids freak out or if my kids misbehave, it's probably something I said or did like earlier in the day. And it's like, it's a learning experience. Like, oh shit, I can't be swearing in front of my kids, or, you know, I can't be, you know, yelling at them or doing, you know, telling them, you know, things that are antisocial. Otherwise they're going to reflect that out into the world, and that's going to cause more harm than good. And so, maybe that's a different angle, but mostly I agree with everything you just said before that. Are my motivations.
What have you learned about yourself from having kids? You said it's been a mirror. Like, what have you seen in the mirror that you would not have otherwise seen?
I'm more like my dad than I thought I was.
Good way, bad way?
In a good, no one's perfect, but it's plus and a minus, right? It's like I understand how my dad was how he acted when I was growing up, and I could see some of the things I have said is what I'm now teaching my kids in the same way, both positive and negative. But obviously, I'm trying to improve. It was a different situation when my father was raising me. This is he's an immigrant. He was trying to raise 4 kids along with my mother. And we didn't have the means, and so it was a very different situation. But it's something where learning from my father's what's the word I'm looking for? How my father raised me and how I can do better based off of that, how I can iterate and make a what's the word? It's like evolution, right? Like I'm trying to make things evolve. And it's not so much like positive or negative here, right? It's just more of like if the world was very different back in the 1980s than it is today. And, you can take some of those learnings from how you were raised and then apply it to your kids. But obviously, as the world changes, you have to also take that into consideration.
What was your childhood and upbringing like?
It was very. I was raised Roman Catholic. My mother's a registered nurse, and my father was a salesman. And so you can understand where the sales part comes from.
Coming from now, everything makes sense.
And so he the bigger influence was from my father, where he went to a very good college in Korea, but came here to the U.S. in the early '80s, and had like $800 in his pocket. But luckily fell into the right industry. He moved to Silicon Valley and, fell into the right industry, the LCD business. So the screen that you're looking at right now, he was responsible in scaling that up. Cause he sold the inspection equipment, to LCD manufacturers. Mostly it was based in Korea. So LG and Samsung were his main clients. So during the assembly line process, his machines would be part of the QA, so quality assurance. So if there were pixel defects on the screen, it's my dad's fault because he sold a faulty machine that didn't detect those pixel defects during the assembly line process. And so that was very common actually back in 1995 when LCDs were starting to kind of take off. But as you know now, if you look at your screen, do you see any pixel defects? It's because machines are working now. They're high yield, as I say. It's yield management capital equipment. So these machines can cost anywhere from tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars. Like your current LCD fab right now costs roughly $6 billion to actually start up. And so a lot of that cost comes from capital equipment of making sure that you can increase the yield. And so it was one part of the cog of the machine, but I think it was a very influential part. And so I got to see a technology grow from 0 to 1, where before LCDs existed, you had CRTs, these big, huge tube TVs, and I got to learn about like I would see my dad show up to Circuit City and Good Guys. Like, you might be too young for this. Like, I don't know. It was Circuit City and Good Guys were Best Buy before Best Buy existed. And so we would our Sunday afternoons and Saturday afternoons, we would show up to Circuit City and Good Guys. And there was this big war between LCDs and panels or plasma TVs. And obviously, my dad was on the LCD side, and guess who won? But he would go to these electronic stores, and debate with the salespeople and teach them why LCD is better than plasma and why they should push LCD more than they should push plasma. And so like I saw that hustle, and it's super downstream effects, right? Like this is like like he's literally at the beginning of the supply chain of this part, but at the end of the day, what drives adoption is the consumer. And so if he can get the salespeople on the ground in the trenches to convince more people to buy LCDs than plasma, then he wins. And so like he would do this by himself. Like this is not like him making any more. I mean, maybe there would be some downstream effects to this, but like I saw that and I was like, dude, this like at the time I just thought it was normal. Like this guy's a fucking hustler. Like he's doing this because he deeply cared about it. And he understood that it was just something that was normal to me. And but yeah, grew up Catholic, have 3 other siblings. Money was tight when we were growing up. And when we were growing up, like, he was in startup mode himself. Like there would be nights where he would be sleeping on the desk because he would be waiting for a phone call from Korea because that's where his clients were. Before there was LCD panels, like we would use pen and paper, another old technology that you might have not heard about. Yeah. And so, you had to be conservative. Like it's like, just like memory, right? Now memory is not even is a luxury now, but you have to use both sides of the paper before you grab a new one. That's what was instilled in me. So that was more of the conservative, like conservation side of things, more sustainably side of things, but it was accidental. It was forced because of scarcity, because we had lack of money. and that was carried out throughout my life.
I identify with some of that as well. My family, they're Jewish refugees from Ukraine. And so I had some of that scarcity mindset growing up, but as founders, we have to be fundamentally optimistic and believe we can create abundance. How did you make that transition or maintain that balance? Because I know you can't fully ever get rid of the scarcity mindset, but how do you hold those two in check and balance?
I mean, luckily, like that's the thing. Like you saw that grind set happening with my father, but like his company like IPO'd. Like now we're doing fine. And so it's something where if you are at the right place at the right time and put in the earnest work, like it'll pay off. That's the American dream. That's why my father, came here and didn't stick around in Korea. And I think that's what I want to continue to do. I'm taking a different angle. But luckily I have a good safety net to take these types of risks. But it's something where I never started a SaaS company, like just to needle SaaS a little bit. Like when I was a founder for Y Combinator, it was a guitar that you can play in less than 5 minutes, right? Like this was back in 2016, and my thesis is that AI is going to take over the world, and the only types of activities that we're going to do is make babies, do creative things, and try to explore the galaxy. And so, when I created this guitar, it was a guitar that you can play in less than 5 minutes, so you can musically express yourself. Because 90% of people who try to learn the guitar fail within the first year. So, in SaaS terms, a 90% churn rate is really bad, right? Your company's dead if you have a 90% churn rate. But Fender, the guitar manufacturer, they're proud of that stat, and I thought that was ridiculous. Like, how can you allow your customers to churn 90%? Luckily, it's just the one and done thing, right? Like, it doesn't matter. There's no SaaS component to guitars, right? there's no recurring revenue. So they want you to fail. So then you can maybe come back later. You'll sell the guitar, right, in the secondary market after you fail the first time. And then maybe you come back again saying, hey, I want to try now again. But that's the company that I wanted to start via YC. To make people musically expressive and make it easier for them to succeed at playing their first song. And it wasn't SaaS. And so it was ambitious in the sense that it was a consumer hardware product. It was also tied to music, which is another no. Like when you want to start a company, don't do music, don't do hardware. Like if you want to make money, if you want to make money, do SaaS. And that being said, I used to sell SaaS, and that's where I made kept myself alive and honed my craft and everything like that. And so it has its place in my life. But when I wanted to start swinging the fences, like do the founder thing again, I wanted to do something that had more of a global impact.
You'd mentioned AI taking over the world and all of us just sitting around being creative. What does that world actually look like, according to you? Like,
I mean, abundance, I think, is the biggest thing, right? Like, we have to unlock the energy component. Like, we're still in a scarcity mindset. Wars are still happening because of natural resources. That should not be a thing. I actually listened to a recent YouTube video with Ashley Vance and Mike Grace. He's the founder of Longshot, which is a kinetic space deployment company. So they use essentially these really big guns to launch things into space and using kinetic energy instead of fuel. And his whole idea is that if you want to ever become a multiplanetary species, just think of Hawaii. Hawaii currently, each person needs about 100 tons of like food and material every single year to supply to sustain the current living standard of Hawaii. That's a lot of mass that you got to put up into space. Like, imagine how hard it is just to get stuff to Hawaii. Now imagine trying to put that into space. Rockets will probably get humans to space because of how gentle it takes. Like, we can take those G forces, but anything that doesn't require a light G load will probably just be shot up kinetically, and it makes sense to me. And so becoming so living in that world where we have AI, and the reason too is that to get that material up into space is so we can mine the entire solar system, right, for natural resources. Because again, we're resource constrained here down on Earth. Eventually, we'll run out of oil. Eventually, we'll run out of the materials that we need to be a trillion person world, right? We're right now like 9-10 billion, but we can easily 1,000x this, 10,000x the amount of people that live on this planet. But right now we're resource constrained. And so, AI is going to play a big role in that, how to organize that world, but also being able to mine the entire galaxy of natural resources and bring it back down here so we can create a very abundant future. I'll be very long and dead before that ever happens, or maybe it will. Maybe it'll happen in my lifetime, but I don't know. The acceleration of AI is pretty crazy right now. But I think like that's the future I'm looking forward to for my kids or my kids' kids.
Are there problems that AI can't solve for us?
I mean, that's a TBD. Yeah. I think it's like I rather, maybe another way to take a look at it, I rather take the bet that AI is going to help solve a lot of things versus destroy it. Maybe it's my optimistic view of how I look at technology and how it's made a positive impact in my life and for the rest of the world. But I think it'll be I think the better way to look at it is it'll be a net positive in the world versus a net negative.
I think so too.
Because there's never, it's never perfect, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, just like how we've talked about the caveats of stratospheric aerosol injection. There's always side effects to every medication.
Are there any? What are some of the implications you might be able to foresee in like a post-scarcity world? Like, how do we find like purpose, for example? Like, what do you think that's going to look like? How is that going to change like the human animal and like all of that?
So, living in that post-scarcity world, it's hard to say, but it's like, I think the easier way to maybe go about it is to look at history itself and how we were living, back when we didn't have the Industrial Revolution and how technology has accelerated.
So post-scarcity, our circumstances might change, but do you think our biology will change? Like, aren't we still the same monkeys scared of the saber-toothed tiger or hunting for food? Like, what do you think that's going to look like for us?
I mean, I don't know. I think we'll be both dead by that time that happens. So maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll upload our brains into the ether, or something will we'll be able to eat all the right vitamins like Brian Johnson and live forever.
So what do you make of longevity tech? Like where we are now, where it's going? Like, do you think we can extend our lifetimes to 200 years? Like what, or immortality? Like what's your take on it?
I mean, I think it is possible, right? Because if you just look at current species, like turtles live for 100 years plus. Like, why can't we? Or when we were at Reboot, I remember hearing about even mammals, right? The bats have a like uninspected like life expectancy because they have to fly. They're the only mammals that actually fly. And they have a really good heart because of that. So maybe there's some kind of bat gene we can extract and splice it into our biology to increase our longevity. So I think it's there. It's just someone has to take that leap and try to experiment, which could have detrimental effects, right? But like I was really excited about this past week, Colossus being able to create the dire wolf. Like that's really cool.
What's that? I don't know about this. What's going on?
Oh, so Colossus is
Blow my mind.
So Colossus is the like it's a biotech company where their tagline is that they're trying to bring back the woolly mammoth. They started with a woolly mouse. So they essentially spliced some mammoth genes into a mouse, and you see this really cute mouse that is like really scary, like really like fluffy. That looks like a mini woolly mammoth. But then recently they came out with a new discovery or new breakthrough where essentially they took a gray wolf, which I guess is the closest like cousin to the dire wolf, which you might have seen in like Game of Thrones and stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff that they're trying to do. Is it's an ancient wolf, but they splice I think like about 20 about a handful of genes into this thing to make it look more like a dire wolf. And so if they can do 20, types of genes, like can do 100, can do 1,000, or, what are those core key genes that they need in order to be able to make something not extinct. But if you can make something not extinct, what else can you do with that technology, right? Because you're now swapping out genes here and there. I think that then the next application is humans and how we can make our lives better. How can we cure diseases? How can we reduce all those different things that reduce our life?
It sounds like that inevitably leads to forking our species in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Like, will we be
just
Homo
like
sapiens anymore?
Right. Versus the Neanderthals, right? Who won there? Obviously we know, but maybe that day will come. So, and we're accelerating that evolution.
What do you think is the first thing you'd want to edit if you were in charge of that gene editing?
Depression.
Oh, really? Yeah. Because it does have like highly correlated genetic links, right?
Yeah. So I that, and also mental diseases. Those things are like bipolar disorder, things that are that destroy families, like the hidden things like that, where people are afraid to share their mental health. Like that should not be a thing. And it's not like I'm trying to make everyone happy and smile all the time kind of thing, but like there has to be some, like if there's a way for, like I get depressed, I've dealt with depression before, and it's not helpful to anybody, like including yourself, but also the people around you. And I personally don't think the therapies talk therapy helps a lot, but and hanging out with founders like yourself helps quite a bit. But I think the current method of dealing with depression is drugging yourself up, which is probably not the best route because now you're relying on a chemical to change your brain chemistry. But if there's a way to genetically modify that, I think that'd be a huge plus in humanity for humanity. Yeah.
So what do you? So it's clear that the world would be better if folks who had like tremendous dispositions to depression, anxiety, et cetera, could be cured of these negative dispositions. But it's not going to stop there, right? We're going to start altering our psyche in all kinds of ways, and eventually, perhaps not even resemble humans, right? Like where's the line? Where do we want to like draw the guardrails behind like editing ourselves?
It's vibes again. just like who wants a cooler planet? Like I think it's just based off of and there's always going to be. I mean, as long as this technology becomes accessible to everybody, that's where I don't have the problems anymore. So then people then can make the choice by themselves if they want this or not. And I go back to LCD panels. Like LCD panels back in 1995, a 15-inch panel cost $1,500. In today's dollars, that's roughly $3,000 to $4,000. Very expensive for a 15-inch screen. Now, literally, almost every person has a supercomputer in their pocket with an LCD panel. We have made technology like the LCD panel, aka the phone now. Lifted the intelligence of the entire world by having a supercomputer in their pocket. And there's a classic graph where like different prices of different commodities like washing machines and TVs and like your electric stove or all these things and cost curves. LCD wins all the time in terms of how fast the adoption rate was, in terms of just sheer scale. And just like the washing machine, like it freed up a ton of time in the domestic world where you weren't carrying 50 pounds of clothes to the river and then scrubbing it all day and then bringing it back, hanging them, and then waiting for that to dry. Like that was a huge unlock into humanity. And washing machines got cheaper and cheaper, where in most of the developed world, there is one in every home, or at least there's one at least like a mile away where you can access one. And so, yeah, I know you live in New York, so maybe you have a washer and dryer in your building. I didn't when I lived in New York for 6 years. Like I had to carry like 20 pounds of laundry to a 3-story walk up every day, or not every day, but like once every 2 weeks or so. But it's something where I think like whatever technology it is, like as long as the cost curves go down where it is accessible to most people, I think it should happen.
So with technological advances and a number of other factors, our IQ has been increasing by like 3 points per generation approximately. I believe that was according to the book Range. But I think gene editing could create a much larger jump, like incomparable to LCDs, like to where it's like we're creating a new species of human with like radically different genes that can make like previous humans perhaps irrelevant in some ways. Like, what do you think about the implications of such a future and maybe even class divisions that like transcend just race, but like species all of a sudden?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know the implications. It hasn't happened before. I mean, my philosophy is fuck around and find out. So
five and see what happens, right?
Yeah. Create 5 first. Like if they're terrible people, let's just kill them. Like. Like, all right,
let me ask you a question. What is the limitation of vibing it out? Like, can't you make an irreversible mistake through this approach? Like, how do you know when to be conservative?
With genetic editing, yeah,
genetic editing or SO2, like everything.
Well, SO2 in itself is self-controlled, right? It goes away in a year, regardless of how much you deploy up. And so. Like that's why we picked this technology specifically. It's there is a reverse button. It's a very natural reverse button. It's a default. It's a dead man switch, right? No matter how much we put up in that year, it'll all fall back out into the poles of the Earth in 1 to 3 years. And so if we stop, then we stop cooling the planet, and then we try to figure out a different way to cool it down. So it is reversible in itself. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in gene editing, so
sure. Yeah.
I don't want to be that like the polymath founder who thinks he knows everything. Like I just read Twitter and academic papers every once in a while, kind of thing.
You're one of the smarter people that I know, Andrew. Don't give yourself too little credit there, my friend.
But I just think it's exciting. We should try it, and if it doesn't work, I mean. I personally in the camp of capitalism, right? Yeah. Like people have to vote with their dollars that this is something that they want, right? YC's mantra, and build something that people want. If no one wants this, like, we can make a collective decision that we don't want this. Like, we did it. We did it with nuclear power. Like, in the 70s, there was some craze like that we said, hey, we've got these rocks that glow and heat up things that is more safe than coal, that is more safe than gas and oil, and we didn't use it. We just said, hey, like fuck this, like. So the vibes weren't right. Like, sadly, the vibes weren't right, and we collectively decided not to do it. Even though we demonstrated that it was safe.
Lock the door.
Okay, we don't need to lock the door. It's fine. I don't know why I don't want me to lock the door. Lock them out.
You know what? I'd like to leave that in there. Parent, like all kinds of distractions, like from kids and like your energy. What would you say to a parent who's considering starting a startup, a venture-backed startup, maybe a startup that's looking to change the world as you are? What advice would you give them?
Just try it. If you have an idea that you cannot like let go and you want to see it in the world, try it. That's the only thing I can give advice to. My situation is very different from other people's situations, but until you give it a go, you will never know, and you'll have that doubt in your head, like, what if? And it wasn't something where like I was. That being said, like, I didn't know about stratospheric aerosol injection before I even started this company. So like it wasn't something where I thought, hey, I'm growing up to go and save the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wanted to become a plastic surgeon. I wanted to help people in a different way. Like, I thought I was going to go through the pre-med track and help people with reconstructive surgery because I wanted to. I saw people with different defects or they lost something through an accident, and I wanted to help these people, but organic chemistry killed me, and so I had to switch over to economics instead. And so
brutal.
Yeah. and so I think the big thing is that you have to have a certain amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Like craziness, not
irrational optimism.
That's a nicer way to put it. I'm trying to be even more negative. Like it's like you have to be what's the word for like delusions of grandeur. Like you have to be a little bit like unhinged, right? You have to be a little bit like, because like this is a crazy, like I'm very aware that this is a crazy thing, like that we're trying to cool the planet down to a global scale. Like that's batshit and insane.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little bit what's the word? Like, yeah, I can't come up with it right now. I'm blanking.
It's all good.
But you have to somehow quiet down the doubts in your brain saying that this is not possible. Because until you do it, you don't know if it will work. And unless you try, you never know. And you can come up with all the excuses of why you should do this or not do this. But until you actually give it a go, you'll never know. And quite frankly, we thought we were going to die. Like, Make Sense was going to die like in a year, like less than a year. But now it's year 2. Like, we just got featured in Bloomberg. Like, we've been in the New York Times
a few days ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. I love the big video of the balloon flying straight into the power lines. Was there a BB gun on site also to pop the balloon? Was that right?
Pop the balloon and for self-defense as well, just in case the randos come and try to stop us. So we can pelt them with some BBs.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
In case they thought you were trying to like do 5G radiation or something, you need
right, exactly.
Just something in case. But that was a pretty neat documentary. I like that they put you in the same documentary as whale poo.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a legit geoengineering type of intervention. They just have to do it at scale. So you need a lot of whale shit. Is the problem? Like
Synthetic whale shit, right?
Yeah. They're making artificial whale shit, which then the phytoplankton eat it, and then this phytoplankton eventually die, and then these phytoplanktons are CO2 carbon based life forms, and so after they die, they'll sink at the bottom of the ocean, and so they sequester some carbon. And the ocean is the largest, air. What's the best word I'm looking for? The best place to store, the biggest storage of carbon in the world. So, yeah.
How would you like to be remembered, both by your kids and by your species, the world? Like, what does that look like?
For me, is Dad tried something. Dad tried to do something big, and he swung for the fences. And I think if I can leave that imprint to my children, to take those risks in the face of adversity. We didn't really get to dive into like why I'm a single father, but maybe that could be V2 or the second.
Only if you want to. I mean, you and I have talked plenty about it, but it's part of your story.
It's part of my story, and they are somewhat these kids are somewhat familiar with how that happened. They lived through the trauma themselves, and I could have easily started taking drugs. I could have easily stopped doing what I'm doing. I could have played it really safe. But in that face of adversity, I want my kids to know that I tried something really, really ambitious. And because I want to be like, my biggest role model are my parents. And, they had a different set of challenges, but they faced them head on, with the cards stacked against them. Like my dad, like barely spoke any English when he came to the US, but somehow he hustled his way to sending 4 kids to private school through private university. Like he was paying like $250,000 a year in tuition at one point. Wow. And so like straight cash, like I'm not that smart. I had an athletic scholarship for like $2,000 a month, like $2,000 a year kind of thing. Cause I could swim a little bit, but we paid cash, like they paid cash for that stuff. And so that's impressive in my opinion, for this guy who literally had nothing when he was growing up, and it had it all destroyed when he was 18. So, that is a huge amount of inspiration, and I want to pass that along to my kids so they can, reach for the stars. I want them to be, astronauts, but like right now, my older one wants to be a ninja, and my younger one wants to be a monster truck driver. So if that's what they want to pursue, that's fine. I'm not gonna push him in any way, but obviously I'm gonna try to give him the resources and the inspiration to do that. Because at the end of the day, I think that's the most important part. Like I think a lot of stories about founders is that they came from very humble beginnings, but what really drove them to kind of break out was because of the agency that they had, and from the mentors and the people that really helped them really pursue the hard things.
Who were your mentors, and how did you develop your agency?
The mentors in my life, and what was in the agency, right? Were the two,
right?
So mentors were, it was kind of funny. My parents weren't so much my mentors. They're more of like providers, right? They gave me that inspiration, but like when you ask questions, like my dad, like he only had one line: is like, be a leader, like just like try to be the first one to say yes, the first one to volunteer, and just push forward. And so that was his only advice, or do the right thing. Like there wasn't any kind of tactical advice in there. Like it was just like, here's your North Star, go for it. But in terms of when I went to college, I was actually deeply involved in the Catholic Church. Throughout my life, the Catholic Church was a huge part of my life. Like I was an altar server. So for people who are not familiar with the Catholic organization, the altar server is like a helper that essentially helps the priest during Mass to carry out the actual ceremony. And so, that was just a big part of my life, just essentially just community service. But I carried that community service throughout college. And I met this very influential priest. He's passed away since then, but Father John McGuire. And this guy was the guy that if there was a Catholic cop or a fireman that passed away, he would be the one conducting the funeral. Or a majority of them. And so this guy was just a larger than life type of figure that had an extremely large heart and, not sacrifice. He dedicated his life to the community. And I saw that in how much people he was helping. We would spend, after helping, I would help out at the 6:00 mass. So shout out to St. Joe's in Greenwich Village if you go there. But I was the guy every Sunday showing up, and afterwards, we would go and eat dinner with the other priests because it was a Dominican church. So there was actually other friars, so other priests that co-lived with these other priests. And so I would just hang out with these guys, like these old heads, like in their 60s and 70s, just talking about life. And, I wouldn't ask that many questions, but they would be shooting out a ton of advice and a ton of mentorship. And, they've lived such a interesting life where, they're dedicating their lives to helping other people. And actually considered becoming a Catholic priest at one point, like my junior year of college. I actually wanted to become a priest because I saw the impact that they were making in people's lives.
Wow.
And so that's where I think I got a lot of my refinement of my hustle, because it was just raw talent at that point of just sheer just brute force. Because the way that I got to that level was, I was a swimmer as well. So this is the jock side of me. But you've met me in life. I'm what, on a good day, I'm 5'7", maybe 5'8". So I'm not the biggest dude, in the in the room.
But you have bigger than life energy, and you're really fun to be around.
So, but that's the thing, right? I'm not the biggest guy in the room, but I swam for NYU, which is a D3 program, but I was recruited to swim there. I was beating dudes that were 6 foot tall, 6'2", 6'3", because I didn't rely on my physical talents. I had extremely good technique. I could iterate very quickly and figure out how to use my body to swim faster than these guys. And by putting in the work, putting in the technique, putting in the practice, being better conditioned than them, and I beat out a lot of people, and that taught me that I can beat people bigger and smarter than me. And so that then translated to my work ethic, thinking that I don't need to be the smartest guy. I don't need to be the strongest guy. I just have to be able to iterate faster than them.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I think there's a lot of different learnings that listeners will get from this podcast. We went a little all over the place.
Sure.
Some really cool new things you taught us about science and also these woolly mammoths. I'll have to look into that. that was pretty cool. But it was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.